What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. I was hoping that by the time I made this video that I would have all the shipment in so we can continue some major progress on my brother's wagon. Unfortunately, two of the biggest main items are stuck in customs, and it was supposed to show up yesterday. Though I did get an update this morning that it was released from customs, I'm really crossing fingers that we get the package tomorrow. Now, I did mention in a couple of videos ago that I needed to paint my all-wheel drive transmission that goes into my Civic wagon. So I did have it all mounted up on the engine stand right there. And I figured while we wait for the shipment to come in, let's make the transmission look pretty. So what I did here was I took off everything on the transmission I didn't want overspray on, like the grommet, speed sensor, bracket, 12mm bolts that holds the housing together, the shift lever. I taped off the barcode, and I gave the entire transmission a good scrub. And then I laid down some high temp primer, and then Duplicolor cast aluminum. Duplicolor because I used VHT here and I couldn't find VHT anywhere, and I settled for Duplicolor hoping that it'll be somewhat the same shade. So Duplicolor cast aluminum, and sure enough, it's a pretty freaking close match. Not that you would notice a difference anyways, because all the charge pipe is going to sit about right there. And I was told that Duplicolor bought out VHT. I don't know, but yeah, just so you guys know, this is pretty close to VHT cast aluminum. So that's what I used to spray my trans, and this thing is ready to rock and roll. Those are the stuff that I did in between the days waiting for the big items to show up, which still isn't here. So I figured, you know what, trying to make some progress, and there are some other things that I can do in the meantime. And today we're going to be popping out the mounts for my brother's rear diff because they are super shot, in hopes of being able to fill them in with like window glue, so that way you know, once everything goes back together, the glue is nice and hard and we can put it back in and his diff can stop bouncing around. I did the same thing on my wagon. I think I shown a video of it, but I want to do it on my brother's car, and then I want to address a few things in the engine bay of my wagon. So enough jibber jabber, let's go ahead and jack up the back of my brother's car and pull those mounts off. Whew. We're gonna go ahead and jack up the differential right here, and we're gonna be removing the rear mount, which is this guy here, and the one on the top is, where is it at? That guy right there. He said that this car, the diff would move around a lot. Check it out. God damn. Okay. This thing doesn't even have a bushing at all. Wow. All right. That's one mount. Everything on this table right here is for the rear mount of the rear differential, the hardware, the bracket. I honestly don't even know what this does, right? This connects to the back motor mount, which is this one here that sits on top of the subframe. I remember when I did it on my wagon, I welded a plate from right here to the opposite side so I can make this a full solid mount, because there's obviously nothing here in between, right? And then this one sits on top of the differential with two 17mm bolts, and then these two 14s bolt up to the chassis. It has like a top hat right here, which I don't know if this is supposed to be connected to the spacer right here, because it literally just fell off, right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill all of this right here on the inside, and then also on the bottom side right here. So if you look at the spacer right here, you can see these little marks where this was touching the bushing right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm probably gonna fill it all the way up to the spacer, and before I do so, I'm gonna go ahead and just give this a good wash, make it all nice and clean. And I actually don't even know if I have window glue, so I'm gonna have to look for that. Looking good, looking good. I'm gonna let it dry a little bit more. Probably gonna put the heat gun inside here to get all the water out. And I went through my bottom drawer and I did find some glue. This one's probably super hardened already, because this has been in my drawer like this with a glove on it for a very long time. But I do have this one that's not open, urethane adhesive, and I don't know if this is any good. I mean, I can squeeze it, so there might be, this might still be usable, but I'm gonna dissect this one a little bit. Oh, damn. So this is dried, this top section, but there's still glue, this bottom half, because there's glue on here after puncturing it. So I cut this tube in half. You can see where it is starting to dry up right there, but this bottom half is still usable up to about where the sticker is at, because this bottom side is hollow. This end, I don't know how far I can use this urethane in the tube, because this top end is already fully dry. So, you know, we're gonna try to pick out as much as we can. If need to be, we do have a brand new one right here to use. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to pack the urethane as much as I can on the top side right here through this gap. And then I'm gonna flip around and pack it as much as I can this way through both of this slit. So this might get a little messy, but you know what I'm saying? We're gonna try to salvage this. That's what I'm really trying to do. This honestly might take way too long to do. So this is my Milwaukee caulking gun, and I didn't want to use the tube originally because I didn't have a nozzle, but after digging around I found one. So we're gonna make our life easier to use a caulking gun to insert the urethane than to use my finger and, you know what I'm saying, do it that way. Ooh-wee. Okay, let's go ahead and just insert. I'm gonna smooth this out real quick and then we'll move to the other side. Just gonna go ahead and shove it in there. Switch over to the other side. We got some squeeze out.
Constructing everything from homes to skyscrapers in the United States and beyond. DK Hardware is their first choice. DK Hardware offers the largest hardware selection. Get personalized quotes within 24 hours.
So the rear mount, I mentioned that there's no plate right here. While I was underneath the car, I took a look on the subframe itself to see if anything goes here. On the subframe, it's not actually flat. There's like a little hump that goes where this motor mount would be sitting at. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take this flat stock, I'm going to bend it a little bit so that way I can weld it onto the bottom of the mount, just so that the rubber has something to sit on. Because once this sits on the subframe, and say if the diff moves up and down, if it moves up and down, the bushing has a way to escape, which means, you know, it can just rip out and go towards the subframe, right? But if I have a plate to hold it in place, it's really not going to go down because this plate is preventing the bushing from going down, if that makes any sense. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm not going to fully weld it. I'm just going to tack it into place, and then I'm just going to go ahead and fill this up with glue, because you know, if I let the glue sit overnight, it's probably going to harden overnight. So let's bend this bar up. Hiya. Hiya. All right, so that's the bottom plate right there. You can see I curved it a little bit to hopefully clear that hump, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and just tack this up real quick. We have the plate tacked up right here. I'm probably gonna shave it down just a smidge, and then I'm gonna heat up this bushing just to get it all nice and soft, so that way the new urethane could adhere to it. And let's get to gluing. This right here, guys, is a freaking solid mount. Hell yeah, brother. All right, so I've been sitting here on my laptop just doing some research to see if there's a Civic Wagon aftermarket rear diff mount, and there's none. But for the RD1 CRV, there is a company called Boosted Fabrication that makes a solid rear diff mount for the RD1, and based off this article, the RD1 CRV and the Civic Wagon rear diff mounts are pretty close, pretty identical. So let me show you guys real quick. So right here, this top hat spacer thing is almost the same. The CRV on the left is a little bit larger than the Civic, but if you look, pretty much the same. And then going down to the rear mount that sits on the subframe, the CRV looks a little bit larger, but all the holes and everything lines up perfectly. So the rear diff mount to the subframe from the CRV RD1 and the wagon, pretty the same. And then the harmonic dampener, the wagon's on the left, the RD1 is on the right, and this one is larger, obviously, the Civic. But when you bolt it up, according to this guy, they practically sit in the same spot. So to answer the question, is there an aftermarket rear mount for the diff on the Civic Wagon? If they are identical to the RD1, the answer would be yes. Boosted Fabrication has one for $120 before shipping. So I think for now, we're just gonna rock the filled mounts, because that's gonna be a lot better than it being loose beforehand, right? And if my brother wants to upgrade to this later down the road, I mean, 120 bucks, not a big deal. Now for the second gen CRV guys, 02 Plus and the Honda Element guys, if you're watching this and you want to stiffen up your rear diff mounts, 1320 Performance has an upgraded rear diff mount for your vehicle. We installed one on the homie S-Size Turbo Element build, and his diff has been pretty solid. So for right now, I'm just trying to figure out what to do about this. Or I can just buy the CRV one. Next day, and I don't think I'm going to be installing the mounts in this video, because this thing, I'm gonna let it sit for a few days to let it cure all the way through. Obviously, this thing was sitting in the garage overnight, and the top surface is dry, but the inside is still a little squishy. So I'm gonna let it sit for a couple of days to dry thoroughly. But just to show you guys, I think I did it before. Here's the after. Not fully cured, but you can see I can't even move this, right? But it does have a little bit of movement, so it's not going to be like super solid and crazy vibration in the car, which in my wagon it doesn't even vibrate at all, or at least I don't remember it. But pretty solid. And I can also feel a little squish on this end, but I'm gonna let this two sit. So I'm not gonna be working on my brother's car anymore as far as this video goes, because we're just waiting for parts. I kind of want to talk about my wagon a little bit, and there is one thing that I want to do that I noticed the other day when I was stripping the engine bay down. So I'm gonna take these off real quick. So this is the engine bay currently on the wagon, and I kind of posted on Instagram yesterday to see what people think I should do, even though I'm kind of still in a pickle about the situation. The votes: 478 yes, 73 answered no. The question here is, should I respray the engine bay while the engine's out of the car? And the reason why I'm asking this is because originally, I think I mentioned it, that I was just gonna dab up all the chipped area, all of these guys here. I was just gonna dab it up and just kind of make it uniform, dab some clear on it, call it a day. But I cannot, for the sake of my life, figure out where my leftover paint's at. So I don't have paint to paint it if I wanted to do just that. So that means I would have to go to the paint shop and buy paint to do that, right? But if I'm buying paint, I may as well buy enough paint to do the engine bay. You know what I mean? While the engine's out, because it just makes it easier. On top of that, the engine bay is fully tucked. So the only thing that's really in the way here is, you know, I can pull this inside, pop my suspension off. This right here could unbolt it, take it out of the car. All this is coming out because we're doing the factory master booster. This is only 4 bolts that comes off, and you know, the engine bay just needs a quick sand down, or actually a thorough sand down, because of how bad these chips are. And then give it a good coat of primer, sand it down, another coat of primer / sealer, and then we could just respray the bay and make it look just as good as the engine that's going to be going back in, right? So that's kind of my dilemma right now. Let me know what you guys think I should do. Should I respray the bay, or should I just dab it up? So going back to the engine bay here, what I wanted to do is assess my subframe. If you guys look, I didn't even notice this until the engine came out. My subframe is bent right there, right? And this is a right-hand drive specific subframe, and it's hard for me to even find one, yet alone a steering rack, because I've been wanting to go manual rack, but it's just it's a unicorn. So my steering rack is what's messed up. That's why the steering in this car is so bad, and it's one of the main reasons why I don't really drive this car. But aside from the steering rack being bad, the subframe now I'm looking at it is freaking bent, which is very common for K series in an EF chassis, B series as well too, or even a high horsepower car. My red all-wheel drive CRX had the same bent on the subframe, and actually had a crack, which then I replaced it with another one, and then I welded the seams to make it a little bit stronger, and then, you know, I didn't see any issues up until I sold the car. But this I gotta figure out how to bang it back out. What I'm seeing here is, because this is folded down, I can see this front section right here bulging out. So I'm thinking of knocking that back in and hitting this to come back up. And then what I might end up doing is, this is the EFK1 motor mount, so we don't have the extra little tab to weld onto the subframe like the EFK2 with the wishbone. So I might end up just welding this bracket to the subframe, or at least stitch weld it, and then figure out this gap right here. This is one of the issues with this mount way back in the days when I installed it in this car and my brother's car. So I gotta figure that out, man. It's crazy. I can see how much is leaning like this way. But anyways, I'm talking too much. I'm just gonna go ahead and unbolt this bracket and figure out how to fix this subframe. So I'm gonna try to put a 2x4 to see if I can bring the lip up. I don't know if this is gonna work, because there's really no weight in the front of the car because the engine's not in here, but it's worth a shot. Yeah, no, that's picking up the entire car. Gonna go ahead and take some reference of my brother's subframe. I mean, this whole section right here looks pretty straight, and then it curves up right there. Now my subframe is missing the lip because it was cut for a bigger header when it was all motor. So straight line and then curve. He has the same motor mount, as you can see. He also has that gap down there, which kind of sucks, but I mean, it is what it is. On my brother's subframe, this section right here is smooth and straight all the way across. But if you look at mine, I don't know if you guys can see that indentation right here. Right here, there's like a little dent right there. So what I'm gonna do is I wanna get this down to metal, and I'm gonna put my stud gun on it to put a stud on and see if I can try to pull that little crater, that dent right there. I'm gonna try to pull it out. For the most part, this looks straight. It's kind of hard to tell because this seam is completely welded, and the more I look at the subframe as I'm smacking it, I kind of want to put a plate like right here, a good thick plate, and weld it all the way across, because the thin metal obviously is easy to flex. If I put a thick plate here and weld it, it's going to be harder for it to bend down, especially, you know, right here where the mount will be at. I mean, don't get me wrong, I did bend this right here the other day. That's pretty thick, but a little extra support doesn't hurt, right? So I don't know if this is normal, if you guys can see this crater that's right here. There's like a crater right here, right? I don't know how I feel about this right here, but for the most part, I want to pull this out to get it all nice and straight again. For some reason, this is not sticking really well. This is what I'm afraid of when it comes to like doing one thing and then leading to another. So I pulled out the back dent right here. I tapped this down while I was using the sliding hammer and got this back section to stay into place. I still have a little bit right here in the front right here, and this was a little hard for some reason. The spot welder didn't really put the stud on here like permanently, like penetrate it. Every time I put the slide hammer on, it would just fall off. So I had to whip out the welding machine to weld the stud into place to pull out as much as I can. So right now I still have a little like low spot right here, and it doesn't really bother me, but it's just like I'm already here, I may as well do it, right? And now at this point, because we're doing all this, the subframe is going to come off, we're going to repaint it. It only makes sense, right? Still hot. Guys, I spent probably another 45 minutes to an hour welding a bunch of freaking studs. I keep cutting out the circuit over there, and man, there's like 20 studs all over the floor everywhere. But I was able to pull out a little bit of that front dent, and I can still it feels super wavy on the top. It's not the straightest, because you know it's kind of hard to pull out a dent when it has so many different type of curvatures and stuff. But I mean, for the most part, a lot better than when we first started. There's a wave right there, you can kind of see the wave. I feel like right here I might have popped it out too much because it's like a high spot. Still there, but anyways, this looks a lot better. I'm hoping that when I figure out how to plate this section here, it's gonna bring some structure back to the center subframe, and hopefully we don't have a lot of issues with it later down the road. although I don't really drive the wagon as often anymore. But you know, I just definitely do not want this to collapse on me if I'm driving long distance or whatever the case may be. Definitely the subframe is gonna come out so we can clean it up and respray it. I'm probably gonna end up shaving this down right here nice and clean, weld it back up, make it look uniform, you know what I mean? I mean, this never bothered me, but if it's gonna be out, I may as well clean it up. So subframe, I'm gonna put some paint on this. I'm gonna go ahead and clean up. So right now I'm just gonna go ahead and put some universal flat black. This right here is a brand from Home Depot, quick color, dries really quick. I'm not doing the primer process and stuff because we're gonna be stripping this down anyways. So just some cheap paint to cover up the bare metal. Just for now. So guys, we fell deep into the night here. I had to go fix the fence near the creek because somebody cut right through it and it literally opened up a gateway for everybody on that end to come this way. Definitely didn't want that traffic, so I spent about 35 minutes to rewire the fence to the post to close it up a little bit to hopefully stop traffic from coming through. But aside from that, we sprayed the subframe after pulling out as much of the dent as possible. The spray is just temp until we pull the subframe out to reinforce it, and then we'll probably refresh the whole thing. But I think at this point, I might end up respraying the engine bay, and I might start sanding the engine bay down in between waiting for parts. Because today, the transmission for my brother's car still didn't show up. Regardless if the trans showed up, it wouldn't have mattered anyways because the clutch is still not here. It's weird that my mail guy hasn't shown up today, but I'm hoping to receive both of those in the next upcoming days so that way we can start putting my brother's car back together. After my brother informed me about his differential moving around a lot, all we did in today's video was we popped out the mounts from the rear diff to fill it in with urethane. I'm probably gonna let it sit for another day or so before I put it back in. It's still kind of soft, but it's definitely a big improvement because this spacer barely moves around now, so hopefully that's going to help the differential from moving around too much. He also was talking to me yesterday about wanting to paint match his hood. Now I spent some time to try to find some vinyl close to the color of his car, which is Laguna Gold, and I can't seem to find a wrap close to it. It's either gold or it's tan, like super light tan, and then champagne is like still a little bit too dark compared to his paint. Although I can probably get new paint to paint it, which is probably what I'm going to do because he requested it. The paint is still going to look a little newer because his Laguna Gold on the car is the factory color and it's pretty faded. A lot of part of the car doesn't have clear coat. A lot of it still has clear coat, so it's going to look funny regardless whether I wrap it off color or spray it with new paint. So hopefully that's going to be something I'm going to be doing soon. And then to end this video off, we established a game plan with my wagon. Hopefully we can tackle that soon. But anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap it up right now. I hope you guys enjoyed the progress update, at least for my brother's car and a little bit of mine. If you guys did, be sure to leave a thumbs up. And if you guys want to stick around for more wagon content, because so far we've been on a wagon roll, be sure to hit the subscribe button. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace. Solid.